Hi everyone, welcome to Wild Voices Online. We're going to get started in a few minutes. I see people are joining us. While we wait, I'm going to put up a question just for fun for you to answer for today. Our question for today is, where do you get your food? And this time I've actually made the question multiple choice, so you can select as many of those answers as you like. Where do you get your food? Maybe you get it from the grocery store. Maybe you get it from a farmer's market. Sorry, one moment, technical difficulties. Okay, maybe you get it from the grocery store, a farmer's market, your garden, directly from a farmer. Maybe you sometimes eat at restaurants or cafes. You can pick all the places that you get your food. Okay, welcome to those who have just joined us. We're just waiting a couple minutes for people to log in and be ready for the presentation to start. So while we're waiting, just a question for you to answer for fun of where do you get your food? And this time you can check as many of those as you like. You don't have to just pick one. Grocery store, farmer's market, your garden, directly from a farmer. Maybe you go right to their farm and just get it straight from them rather than the farmer's market, or from a restaurant or cafe. Where are places that you get your food? Okay, welcome everyone who has joined us. I'll give it about 30 more seconds before we start for today. And just for those who join us in the last few moments, while we're waiting, those few moments for everyone to join us, we're just answering this question just for fun while we're waiting to log in. And you can choose as many of those options as you like, or as you actually use for places where you get your food. Okay, we'll give it 10 more seconds and then we'll get started for today. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, first of all, let's see what you said. Okay, lots of people visit a grocery store to get their food. Some people also go to the farmer's market. Actually, quite a lot of people get food from their garden, which is great to hear. Some folks go directly to a farmer too, and also people visit restaurants from time to time. Okay. So those are some places where you might get your food. But we will get started for today. My name's Christine. I work for the Columbia Basin Environmental Education Network. During May and June, we've been running these online learning sessions called Wild Voices Online. There are a few more coming up in June that you can check out at cbeen.ca/Wild Voices Online. We also have the recordings of the sessions that have already happened posted up there for if you want to go back and watch any of the ones that you really enjoyed or ones that you missed. You can go and check them out there. For how this will work today, you are muted, which means we can't see or hear you. So to ask a question, you can click the little speech bubble that's on your screen that looks like this, and you can type your question to us. And your question will only be seen by myself and our presenter today. I'll ask your question for you when we get to a good pause point. I won't be able to answer it right away. I will ask it of our presenter though when we get to a stopping point where we can answer some questions. And also please be patient with your questions. Just send your question one time. There are quite a few of you in the presentation today, so if I get lots of questions, we might not be able to answer all of them, but we will try to answer the questions that come in. Okay, and then before we get started, I just wanted to know, for you students joining us today, what grade are you in? So if you can just quickly answer, what grade are you in? Are you in grade K1, 2, or 3? I have kindergarten, grade 1 and 2 together. Or are you in grade 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and up? You can let us know. Okay, I'll give this one just 5 more seconds for you to let me know. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see what you said. All right, we have someone from every grade joining us today pretty much. But yeah, lots of folks from grade 4, 5, 6, 7. But yeah, someone from across all the grades today. So welcome everyone. Okay, so I'll pass it over to our presenter in a moment. Callista is joining us today from Invermere. She's going to be talking about giving some thought for our food. And she is a permaculture designer, and she lives on a permaculture-based homestead out in Invermere. So I'll pass it over to Callista to get started.
Hello, everybody. I'm super excited to chat with everyone today. So yes, as Christine said, I have an urban permaculture-based homestead here in Invermere, and I teach lots of education programs with both children and adults on various self-sufficiency topics and environmental education topics. And one of my favorite things to talk about is food and growing your own food and why it's important to know where your food comes from. So that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of talk, I'm going to do a little presentation and talk about some of the common foods that we might see in our households. And then we're going to kind of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole on where some of that food comes from and why it's important to know where that food comes from. I'm going to play a fun little video for you guys while I'm transitioning outside to my greenhouse. And then I'm going to show you guys how to grow your own microgreens at home, which is something that you can grow even if you don't have a garden. So just so you guys have a little bit of a something to be able to grow no matter where you are at. And so that's kind of my plan for today. And I'm going to be asking lots of questions. So make sure you find your speech bubble because I want to see some answers go in there. I'm just going to share my screen here so we can see my my presentation. All right, let's get this going on here. Where are you, presentation? All right, so we're going to go right up to, oh, come on. We're going to go to slideshow. No, slideshow from the beginning. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to do this little thing here called What Food Am I and Where Did I Come From? Now, I can't see the chat, so hopefully I can get this going on here. Let's see. Oh, wait. Yes, I can see the chat there. Now I can see your answers too. All right. So, oops, I went one back. No, go the other way. What did I do? Oh, hold on, you guys. This is not, what did I do? Uh-oh. It's not letting me do it. Oh, there. Okay, so this is, what's this one? Now I got it. I'm pushing the wrong arrow. Okay, so this is a banana. I see lots of people putting that in there. This is a pretty common food that a lot of people have in their house. Did you know that this is how a banana grows? It actually, people call it a banana tree, but it's actually a really, really big herbaceous plant. It's like the largest plant that we have. So that's how bananas grow. Cool, huh? Do you think we can grow bananas here? Okay, I'm seeing some no's. That banana, that's a good one. Yeah, no, they are not going to grow here. It's too cold for them here. What's this one? Carrots. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, do you recognize it now? This is how a carrot looks when it's growing. And lots of people don't know that. So good for you guys. You're so smart. What's this one? One of my favorites. Strawberries, yes. And this is how it looks when it's growing, which I'm sure many people are familiar with, especially if you have a garden. Strawberries are very easy to grow here. What's this guy? Potatoes. Yep, here we go. So this is how potatoes look when they're growing. Where are the potatoes? Where are they? I don't see potatoes. They're under the ground, that's right. So potatoes are a root, they're a tuber. This one, really familiar, right? An apple a day keeps the doctor away, right? So here's a nice apple tree. Can we grow apples here? Yeah, you bet we can. Lots of different kinds of apples. What's this guy? This is another one of my favorites. Broccoli, yup. Yum. Do you recognize it now? So you can kind of see the broccoli heads there if you look real carefully. How about this guy? Orange. Yep, and this is how oranges grow on nice big trees. And do you think we can grow them here? Nope, definitely not. How about this guy? Kale, yep, absolutely. And this is what it looks like when it's growing. And I should have asked too, with the broccoli and the kale, do you think we can grow those here? Yep, we sure can, both of them. Does anybody know what this one is? Oh, I'm seeing some different answers. This is good. Okay, some people are saying garlic, some people are saying onion, some people are saying squash. So yes, squash is the right answer. This is what's called a blue Hubbard squash, and I grow these in my garden, so we can grow them here, and they're very tasty. So this is how it looks when it grows. It actually takes up quite a lot of space. How about this guy? This one's a little bit wild looking. Does anybody know what it is? Ah, I see it. There it is, dragon fruit. You guys got it. So these guys actually grow on a cactus, which is kind of weird, right? That's something that we probably can't grow here unless we had like special conditions for it. Same with like any of the tropical things, right? Yeah, so cool, right? Okay, how about this guy? Eggplant, yup, there it is. And this is how an eggplant grows. It grows on kind of a shrubby bush-like plant, and you can grow them in pots. We can grow them here, not on a perennial basis. You have to start them way before you can plant them outside, but we can grow them here. How about this one? Does anybody recognize this guy? There's some really good answers. Okay, so it does look similar to a turnip, but it's actually, oh, there's radish, there's beets, kohlrabi, there's some interesting answers. This is actually a rutabaga. So they have big tops and they grow underground. It's a root vegetable as well. Rutabaga. All right, so why is it important to know where your food comes from? So it's important to know where your food is grown and how it's processed in order to protect the environment and your health. And I'm going to just go through some slides here and ask you guys some questions. Oh, come on now. There. Does this look like a healthy environment to you? Okay, so I'm seeing some interesting answers here. It says yes, no, it depends. It's good. You need to know where it came from because it could have weird stuff on it. So this picture, I would say, is not a healthy environment for a couple of reasons. One, okay, there's spraying stuff on. There's probably chemicals to kill pests, right? Pesticides. And two, there's not a whole lot of ecology there, is there? It's a monocrop. It's what's called a monocrop. So it's all the same thing that's growing there. There's no diversity whatsoever, which is really important in nature, right? So here's another picture. Does this look like a healthy environment? Think about what nature looks like, and then look at this picture. Not really. So these are all lovely, healthy broccoli plants. This is a broccoli farm in California, but there's bare soil between the rows. There's no diversity. Again, it's a monocrop. So there's not a whole lot of ecology there at all, right? Not a lot of other plants or animals that are going to live there because they're not supported by any other components in this ecosystem, right? It's just broccoli plants, and they probably spray it with pesticides to keep any bugs off of there. How about this one? Does this look like a healthy environment? So this is what it looks like when large-scale grain farmers harvest their crops. And we have this all around us here in Canada. That's what it actually looks like. So when you buy flour at the store, this is where your grains are coming from to go into that bag of flour. Does this look like a healthy environment? Now, this is the trick question. What I'm actually wanting to get you guys to focus on is the plantation. So it looks nice and green and lush, but do you see that there's a very distinct line there? So on one side of this line, this curvy line, it's all the same thing being grown. It's a plantation. And then on the other side, it's the native forest that's there. Do you see how much more diversity there is on the one side than the other? So amazing diversity, so many different kinds of trees and probably a ton of different kinds of other plants and animals and insects that live on that side, right? But then on the plantation side, where it's all the same thing, the diversity drops significantly, right? So there's a lot less other animals that can live there. All right, so we've got this guy here, same question. This is a banana plantation, and it's the same kind of thing. See, there's no plants growing underneath there, where if you were looking at a forest environment, it would be all full of different kinds of plants, and there would be lots of different kinds of animals. Do you think they really want too many different kinds of animals in a food plantation? No, because they're going to eat whatever they're trying to grow, right? Okay. So it's important to look at where your food has come from and how it's grown, because your choices and how you choose to eat, or the foods that you buy, can really have an impact on the environment. How about this? Does this look like a healthy environment, these two places? Yeah, this looks a little better, doesn't it? There's a lot more diversity, right? It's not just all the same thing. There's a whole bunch of different varieties of different plants growing there, and probably supports a bunch of different types of insects and birds and other things there too, right? So these are smaller scale farms that use different farming techniques like permaculture or biodynamic farming. And there's lots of different kinds of techniques that people can use, but generally speaking, smaller scale farms are kind of fall into one of those categories just by nature, because they can't be a huge monocrop, right? So how about this one? Does this look like a healthy environment? Oh, good. I'm seeing some yeses. This is actually my garden. So I like to keep it very diverse. I don't follow straight lines and rows. I try to keep it curvy and wavy, and I try to plant different things in there. And then I also integrate other systems like animal systems into my garden as well. Like I have chickens and things. So, you know, there's just a whole bunch of different things that you can bring into a smaller scale farm that might make it really hard to do on a huge scale farming. But there are bigger farms out there that do use, you know, permaculture principles and things like that. So again, here's another one. This is actually what's called a food forest, and I love food forests. They're perennial systems. I have one here on my homestead as well, and they basically mimic patterns in nature. So they mimic what an ecosystem, forest ecosystem, would look like in terms of the different kinds of plants and the roles that they fill in the ecosystem. and they try to mimic that in a system that they've planted or designed for food, right? So for food or for medicine, there's medicinal herbs in there. There's plants for pollinators. I can see a banana in there. So I'm seeing a question here that says, why is it important to keep your garden rows curved? So you don't have to keep them curved. I just like to not have them so much in straight lines because nature doesn't generally go in straight lines, right? So following contour of the land can help with water distribution. There's a number of different reasons, but I won't get too much into that today. So another reason why it's important to know where your food comes from is because there are different rules all over the world on how your food can be grown, what types of chemicals can be used. There's just different regulations for environmental protection. So in some places like here in Canada or the US, even though food is certified organic, it doesn't mean that no chemicals are used to grow your food. It just means that specific kinds of chemicals are approved to be used on your food. So unless you're buying from a small farmer who you kind of know that doesn't use any chemicals at all, or you know exactly what types of pest management systems they use, you can't really say that your organic food doesn't have chemicals on it at all. Some people don't know that. Whoop, there you go. And then also in different parts of the world, they have different environmental protection regulations. So in some places they're like, no, we can't chop down the rainforest to grow bananas. And in other places they're like, yeah, chop it all down, just grow whatever you want. It's income for our country. So there's different regulations, right? And then some places say you're allowed to do certain things, but you have to you know, make efforts to mitigate the impacts of what you're doing. So if you're going to chop down the rainforest to plant bananas, then you have to plant other things underneath your bananas in order to still provide a biodiverse space for other animals to live in, as an example. So there's different regulations all over the place. And so that's why it's also important to know where your food comes from. Another thing is, okay, so here, different chemicals. Sorry, I missed this slide. So different chemicals are also approved for use in different places. So some chemicals that we might not be allowed to use here in Canada might still be allowed to be sprayed on foods being grown in different countries that we then import. So even though we don't allow the use for it here because we don't think it's safe, it might still be being sprayed on our food coming from somewhere else. Ew, yuck, right? Another reason why it's important to know where your food comes from is because the longer your food takes to get to you, the less nutrition it has. What? Yeah, so when your food gets picked and then it gets put onto a truck or a ship and it has to go all the way across the world or across the continent to get to you, and then it sits at the grocery store on a shelf for who knows how long, could be weeks. The whole time it's sitting there in being transported or sitting there on a shelf, it's losing nutrition. As soon as you pick something or cut it, it's technically dead, right? So it's no longer able to get nutrition from its parent source or from the soil anymore, and it's slowly losing the nutrition that it has inside of it as it's sitting there. So that's, having fresh local food is so important for your nutrition. If you have food that you're picking out of your garden, you went outside, you picked a salad, you picked some lettuce, you made a salad and you ate it, there's virtually no nutrition lost there because you just picked it and then put it in your mouth, right? So the longer it sits on a shelf at the store, the longer the more nutrition it loses. So that's kind of sad, right? To think about that we're just losing so much nutrition in our food. So let's look at the journey of a banana, for example. So most of the bananas that we import here into Canada are from Ecuador. Now, Ecuador is a really long ways away. Direct route from here to Ecuador is 6,767 kilometers. That's a direct flight. The bananas are not going to go on a direct flight. They're going to go on a ship and all over the place. So I have a little video that I am going to show you guys here about the journey of a banana. Now this one goes just to New York, so it's going to be even farther for bananas to come all the way up here to us. But I think it's a really good video that shows where just gives you an idea of where bananas come from and how they get to us. What's their journey, right? So we're going to do this guy here. Make sure we've got the sound on. Okay, here we go.
Here at EXP Group's headquarters in New Jersey. Remember how green our bananas were back in Ecuador when they were...
Hang on. Didn't start at the beginning. All right.
Harvested?
Why won't it start at the beginning? Go back. No, it's why I'm not sure why it's not starting at the beginning now. Hang on, guys. I'm gonna try reloading this here.
Largest exporter of bananas. Here.
Just gonna refresh this page and hopefully this will reset it for us here.
To Ecuador, the world's largest exporter of bananas. Here, banana plantations stretch as far as the eye can see. It takes 9 months for the bananas to fully grow. To protect them from insects, they're covered in plastic bags the entire time.
You do not want any of those bugs or insects arriving into the United States.
Anthony Serafino is vice president of banana importer EXP Group.
I'm looking for a banana that's about 8 inches in length. It's long. It can easily be ripened.
Workers cut the bananas down and then haul the bundle with padded carriers to protect them from bruising. The bundle is then attached to this cable system.
These bananas right now, they're heading right to the packaging facility.
The facility is right in the middle of the farm.
That's where the bananas will be inspected. They look great. They're going to be chopped.
The bananas are washed and then put into a production line. It's here where the stickers are applied. Take a look. Those are our very own Inside Edition bananas. Our bananas are loaded into a truck and then sent to this port in the city of Guayaquil, the largest port of Ecuador. That's where our bananas embark from Ecuador through the Panama Canal, past Haiti and Cuba, and up the East Coast, finally arriving in New York City. That's 3,500 miles. After 2 weeks at sea, our bananas have finally arrived from the tropics to this snowy port in Red Hook, Brooklyn, where you can see tons of cargo being unloaded from the ship. But the journey isn't over. The container with our bananas is loaded onto a truck and arrives here at EXP Group's headquarters in New Jersey. Remember how green our bananas were back in Ecuador when they were harvested? All these weeks later, they're still green. They need to be ripened.
Ripening could take anywhere from 72 to 96 hours.
They're loaded into this room, aptly called a ripening room, where they pump in humid air and a harmless ripening gas called ethylene.
Ethylene infuses the fruit to allow the ripening process to hasten.
We set our bananas aside in the ripening room and recorded the process with time-lapse cameras. Over the course of 96 hours, our bananas become perfectly ripe.
There you have the 2 boxes of the Inside Edition bananas.
So these are ready to go. I can do a taste test here?
Yeah, taste test. Let me know.
Here, you have one too.
Delicious.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
Good. Sweet.
Finally, our bananas are delivered to the grocery store shelf. Good, right?
Very sweet. Tastes good.
What do you think? Yum! Inside Edition bananas. Get them while they last.
All right. So
Just like you guys,
what did you guys think of that? What'd you guys think of that? Got any comments on that whole process there? The journey of a banana? So I got a question here. Are organic bananas ripened the same way? So yeah, they are. Ethylene's actually a natural gas that ripe bananas will produce all on their own. So if you put a ripe banana in with green bananas, it'll actually help ripen your green bananas. But the thing that I wanted to point out is that those bananas were picked super green so that they would last till they got to, the port where they were going to be shipped out to the grocery stores, right? So the food has to be picked often really green when it's coming from far away, like mangoes or bananas, or a lot of those tropical fruits have to be picked super green. The problem with that is that when you pick fruit that's green and not ripe, there's actually less nutrition, and there can actually be some digestive inhibitors in those fruits when they're not ripe. So that's just an interesting side note there. So ethylene. Ethylene is the gas that they used to ripen the bananas. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my slideshow here. Share screen. And actually, you know what? Actually, before I go back to the slideshow, let's do this. We are going to look at Google Earth here for just a quick second, because I just want to give you guys a really good idea of where the heck is Ecuador anyway, and just give you guys an idea of how far that actually is away. So first I'm going to go to where we are. We're here, well, or where I am. I'm going to say where I am. I know we're all from all over the place here. So if we're going to Invermere, BC, whoop, here we are zooming into Invermere. Bloop. All right, there's Invermere, there's the lake, there's the beach. Now where's Ecuador? Ecuador, let's go there. Let's see how far that is away. Zoom way out, way down. So that's where Ecuador is. So those bananas, oops, whoa, that was a little too far. Those bananas have to go from Ecuador and all the way up the coast here, where they probably get shipped into Vancouver and then distributed out of there. So that's like a long ways, right, for those bananas to go. Holy moly, right? Okay, so now we'll go back to the slideshow here. Slideshow. All right, so we looked at that. Now the other thing I wanted to just chat with you about too real quick is, if our food comes from so far away, what about food security? What am I talking about with food security? Well, a really good example of this just came up with the whole COVID-19 situation, where we had disruptions in our food chain system, and food that was coming from farther away, or even food that was coming from closer, couldn't get to us, and the grocery store shelves were empty. So what do we do in a situation where we're depending on food coming from so far away if there's a disruption in that food chain system and we can't get our food? So when I talk about food security, it means the ability to get food or have food So growing some of your own food, or supporting local farmers, is a really great way to ensure food security, because then you know that you have access to your own food right on your own property, or down the street at the farm, at your local farm. If you keep supporting those farmers, they have a greater ability to keep growing food for you, right? So I see some people have a CSA. That's a great way to support a local farmer and get delicious, nutrient-dense, fresh food. And so there's lots of small farmers in everywhere that do these things. Community supported agriculture is what a CSA stands for. There's also ways to be able to grow your own food even if you don't have a garden or access to a garden space. There's plenty of organizations that actually have community gardens for you to use. Here in Invermere, one of those organizations is Groundswell Network Society. I know that there are community gardens all over in different communities, in Revelstoke, in Golden, in Kimberley, Cranbrook. There's a bunch of different organizations that operate those. So again, CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. So yeah, there's lots of really cool organizations in different communities that operate community gardens. Sometimes it's a food bank, sometimes it's an environmental organization like WildSite, sometimes it's a church, sometimes. So there's lots of different of ways to access a space to garden. And even if you don't have a space to garden, there are still things that you can grow inside without, or on your balcony, without having any space at all. So I'm going to show you one of those things today. I'm going to go through a little tutorial on how to grow your own microgreens. And while I'm kind of getting transitioning to set up outside to show you guys this, I'm going to play you guys a fun little video by one of my favorite permaculture music artists called the Formidable Vegetable Sound System. So I'm just going to pull this up here for you guys. All right. Okay, hang on here. Share screen. This is the one. Okay. Oops, no, come back. Okay, we got the sound on. Okay, great. All right. So these guys are hilarious. Are you ready?
And I've got news for you. There's no point doing what you do unless it's somehow good for you. Got to get a result or two in the form of something real. Now if you're feeling stressed and not the best and have trouble finding happiness, well, here's one thing I will suggest. Contain yourself and yield. Tame yourself and yield. Sustain your energy. Don't drain yourself, maintain yourself, obtain yourself, Now money is not the only yield. You could be making a bigger deal about what you eat for your next meal. You can't run on an empty tank. Ignore the stash of cash in your pockets. Make a salad with some homegrown rockets. Just have to go at the back and pluck it. No need to go to the bank. You gotta work your days for stuff that pays. Not just money, but in any ways. It's time you clear away the haze. Obtain yourself a yield. Obtain yourself a yield. Something you can eat. You can produce some things of use with your own 2 hands and feet. Obtain yourself a yield. Right in the here and now. Make sure to earn something in return. Here, let me show you how. sleep. And if you feel like there's not enough air, then breathe in very deep. And if you're thirsty, then you order. Get yourself a drink of water. And if it's gonna be cold and you're feeling bold, you can cheer yourself a sheep.
As a matter of fact,
In any given moment, there's everything you need. Just look around, it will be found. And obtain yourself a yield. Obtain yourself a yield. Take only what you need. Life's pretty fun when you're getting some, but there's no need for greed. Obtain yourself a yield, and one for others too. Make sure to see both ends of the deal. What's good for both of you? Yeah, an easy way to do it is to give one to your friend. The good things you do come back to you, and the yield just never ends. That's right, the good things you do come back to you, and the yield just never ends. Yeah, the good things you do come back to you, and the yield just never, ever, ever, ever ends.
It looks like we don't have Callista quite
No,
yet.
sorry, hang on one second here, guys.
No worries.
There I am.
There
Okay,
she is.
I'm
Okay, perfect.
having a mild technical difficulty here. All right. Can you guys see me okay?
Yeah, we can see you okay, Callista.
I'm just trying to find my video here. For some reason, it has left me. Oh, there. Haha. Okay. All right. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to sit you guys. I feel like if I put you up here, you might be too high. Maybe not. It might be okay. Okay. So microgreens. I'm outside. Behind me here, you can see my garden. Ooh, ah, right. Okay. So what you're going to need is one of these little trays from the hardware store that you use to start seedlings in. I've got one that's a little bit heavier duty, just because I find that having a heavier duty one is nicer, especially if you're moving it around. What I did is I just put a little bit of potting soil in the bottom there, so you don't need too much, just like a centimeter or so in the bottom. And I'll show you guys the soil I like to use, or the potting mix I like to use is this one right here. So it's a Pro Mix one. And this one I like to use because it's mycoactive. Do you see this? Mycoactive. That means it has all of the lovely little beneficial microbes in there already inoculated into that potting soil for you. And like, this is a whole nother topic, but there's a whole world underneath the soil that I could talk about for days. And what you're really actually trying to grow when you're growing food is healthy soil, because healthy soil equals healthy food. So you got to keep your little soil microbes. They're tiny little bugs that you can only see with a microscope. That's why they're called microbes, that live in the soil. So they're part of the essential soil ecology that your plants need in order to grow and be healthy and super nutritious. So the healthier your soil is, the healthier your plants are, and the more nutrition you have in your food. So that's another reason why it's really important to know what kind of farming techniques your food is being grown with, because if you remember back to the slideshow where we had all those pictures where there was, you know, those big monocrops, remember those monocultures, where there was nothing else growing on the soil except for the plants that the farmers were growing for miles and miles? Do you think that the soil is really healthy in that kind of an ecosystem? No, it's probably looking like the soil ecology probably looks a lot like what's happening above the soil too. So it's not very healthy. So it's good to have healthy soil when you're growing your food. Okay, so we've got a tray. I put a little bit of that soil in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use peas for my microgreens, because I really like the taste of pea greens. I think they're delicious. And it's really easy to find these big packages of peas at the store. There's lots of different things you can use for growing microgreens. Cabbage is a really good one. Red cabbage actually has like super high levels of vitamins and minerals. It's probably one of the healthiest microgreens that you can actually grow. Another reason why I wanted to give you microgreens as a thing to grow, because it doesn't take up very much space. You can do it inside your house or on your balcony or in a windowsill. But also microgreens, oh, I should have brought a picture. Microgreens are when, actually my beets right now in the garden are at perfect microgreen stage. So I'm gonna show you these. Microgreens are when they first kind of pop out of the ground, and they just have like their first set of true leaves. So this is a little bit hard to see because there's some weeds involved here too. These are my beets. These are my beets. Can you guys see those? I can't really see my screen. Do you see how small they are? They have like one little.
I can just see the very top of your hand, Callista. So maybe move your screen back just a little bit. There we go. I can see some now.
Can you guys see those? Okay, so see, they just have one little set of true leaves there. They're really small. That's microgreens. That's what size you want them at. So when they come up in your tray, that's what you're going to look for. So beets is another one that you can do microgreens with. Radishes, cabbages, broccoli. What else? Just about anything. Onions. Just about anything that you can eat the tops of, like chard, peas, pea greens, sunflowers. Oh, you can do microgreens with sunflowers too. So just about anything you can eat the tops of, you can make microgreens with. But the cool thing with microgreens is that when they're at that stage in their growth where they have those first two tiny little leaves, they actually contain the most nutrition at that stage of growth than any other stage of growth in that plant's life cycle. So they're actually packed with the most nutrition at that stage of growth. So that's another reason why microgreens are so cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my peas here. Peas, yeah. Okay, I'm going to actually just tilt this like this here. There's my tray. Okay, and I'm going to sprinkle them in there. Pretty thick. Now, if you're doing this with smaller seeds, you're going to want to put less soil on top. Generally speaking, the bigger the seed, the more soil it needs on top of it. So peas, if you look at the instructions, they're supposed to be planted about like an inch down. So when so I just poured this whole package in there. I poured this whole big package in there. This is one of those Heritage Seeds packages. It's 80 grams, so I poured the whole thing in there. So I'm going to show you guys what this looks like now. See all those peas in there? Yeah. So when you're doing microgreens with other stuff like cabbages or broccoli or whatever, you're not going to need to put a whole inch of soil. You just want to put enough soil to kind of cover the seeds. And you can use one of those small packages. You can get away with one or even two. You can play around with it and see how you like it. Like if you like them more dense or if you like them a little bit more more plush, then you can add more or less seeds to it. Usually, so it also takes a different amount of time. It takes different amounts of time to grow different things. So some things germinate and sprout right away, and you can have microgreens in as little as 2 weeks. And some things take longer. It might take up to 6 weeks for some things. So it really depends. But generally speaking, on average, for a tray of microgreens to reach the size that you want to eat them at, I would say it takes between 3 and 4 weeks. So if you know that, based on what you're growing, you can start a tray. And if you know it's going to take you a week to use a tray, wait a week, then plant another tray. Then wait a week, then plant another tray, so that you'll always have a turnover of trays coming all the time. And you can grow them, and then once they pop up, you just cut the microgreens off and you keep the top part. That's the part you eat. They're excellent in salads or garnishes on top of food to make it look extra pretty, especially with things like beets that have red tops on them. It gives them a really cool look. And yeah, you just want to keep them moist but not wet, because they're in this tray. There's no way for the water to drain out, so it's very important that you don't overwater it. You just want to keep the soil moist, not soaked, because if it gets too wet, then you essentially drown your seeds. They still need oxygen in the soil in order to grow and thrive. So I'm just going to take some soil out of here now, and I'm going to cover these guys up. So because these are peas, they're big seeds, they need a little more soil on top of them. So I'm covering them with about an inch worth of soil there. probably a little less than an inch actually. With microgreens, you don't need as much soil as you would growing them out in the garden to full size. So just going to put these on here. It's also important to make sure that they don't completely dry out in the tray either, because they will die that way too. So you have to make sure they need lots of love and care, and you can talk to them. They like to be talked to. Tell them good things. The power of your words, the energy you give them will help your plants grow nice and strong and happy and healthy too, right? Just like children, right? Just like kids. We all like to hear happy things, right? Okay, there. They're all covered up. So I'm gonna take my nice little sprayer here, make sure it's on a nice gentle spray, just a gentle trickle. That's what I'm doing. So I'm just giving them enough to get the soil moist. I don't want to give them too much. And if I find that it's too dry, I can always add more, but it's awfully hard to get water out of there when you overwater it. So it's better to just play it safe and just add a little bit at a time. So just little bits at a time. So now these peas, if I look on my package, so if you look on your seed package on the back, it usually tells you days to germinate. So that is how many days it takes your seeds to sprout and start growing. So if I look here, days to germinate, it says 5 to 10 days for my peas to start sprouting. So that's about a week. So I know that in about a week, these guys are gonna come up, and it would probably take me about a week to eat these. So these will probably, once they sprout, it'll probably take a week, maybe 2 for them to reach about, this tall and have a couple of leaves on them, and that's just the perfect size for me. So I'll start another tray of these in a week and keep circulating it. Yeah, so I'm just looking on here at the questions we've got on here.
For sure, and I can jump in here now, Callista.
Yeah.
I've been keeping track of questions as we go.
Yeah.
I think maybe first a question I wanted to ask is if you could tell us a little bit more about what community-supported agriculture means, the CSA that got mentioned. That's a really interesting way to support farmers.
It is, yeah. So a community-supported agriculture is a system that a farmer sets up where you either buy like a share of the produce on the farm by paying for it with money, and then you get like a bin of produce, whatever the farm is producing at the time. So it'll be a mix of whatever, and so you get just a share of what's produced on the farm. Or you can have a working CSA share where you actually agree to work a certain number of hours on the farm, helping them on the farm in exchange for that bin of produce. So that's a really great way for you to get fresh food and be involved with your local food system and know where your food is coming from. And it's also a really great way to support farmers, because then they know that they have a guaranteed income and that they have a guaranteed workforce. So it's a really great way to support local farmers, yeah.
And it's interesting. It's a great way. That would be a way in those first questions I asked about where you get your food from. That's actually one where it's direct from the farmer. You might not actually have to go there to get your delivery. So that's an interesting one to think of. Like you might not actually go to the farm. They might bring it to you. I get a CSA, and the farmer who grows it for us, they drop it off. So the food just appears at my door, which is pretty great.
That is pretty great. Yeah. So what else do we have for questions on there?
Okay. I had an interesting question of how much nutrition is left if you freeze food? Like if you're trying to store food.
So when you freeze food, it does lose some of its nutrition. I don't know the exact percentages, and I imagine it has a lot to do with the method that's used for freezing. And how long it's frozen for, what temperature it's kept at, and then also what type of food it is. So it'll probably vary a lot, but generally speaking, if it's frozen in like an airtight container at a really cold temperature, it'll probably maintain a lot of its nutrition for quite a while. But then the longer you keep it frozen and stored, like anything, it starts to lose its nutritional value.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question. This question is a question from me, actually. If wondering if you could explain what it is about monocropping, which means just planting one type of plant only over a really big space. It's so hard for the plants. Like, what is it about monocropping that's a challenging way to grow things?
Yeah, like, sorry, I'm just moving inside my greenhouse here because it just started sprinkling and I don't want to get my computer wet. It's sunny, but it's sprinkling. So what is it about monocropping that makes it so hard for the plants? Just like, if it's all the same plants growing in the same space without any other diversity, those plants are all competing for exactly the same requirements, right? They're all competing for the same nutrients that they need and the same amount of water that they need in the soil. If you're in a diverse system, there are other plants that actually can help each other out. One, they're probably not competing for all the same stuff out of the soil, and there are other plants that can actually help other plants out by having like a deep tap-rooted system, for example, where they pull nutrients from way down in the soil where most plants can't reach it, back up to the surface layers where they can reach it, or by being like a nitrogen fixer, like peas and beans are nitrogen fixers. That means they have a special relationship with a little bacteria known as nitrosomus bacteria that live in their roots, and they actually fix nitrogen, which is a nutrient that plants need to grow, from the atmosphere where the plants can't access it, and they put it into the soil so that plants can access it. So if you're growing a diverse system, there's a lot more opportunities for plants to work together and not outcompete each other. But in a monocrop situation where it's all the same plants growing for as far as the eye can see, it's really challenging for those plants to grow in those in those conditions, because they all are competing for the same things.
And I've also heard that when you have all the same type of plant, it kind of makes it like a buffet for pests that because they don't even have to look for it. There's a whole field of it.
Yep, absolutely. Especially with things like broccoli or cabbage, because you know those little white cabbage moths that we have that fly around, they love those types of things and they can spread really quickly. So if they find a whole field of broccoli or cabbage, they're going to be like, oh, right? Free for all. So yeah, that's another problem too, is there's no checks or balances in place for any diseases that'll spread really rapidly, right?
I plant a lot of my plants. I plant them with a bunch of marigolds in my garden, which is a type of flower that bugs don't like. Like, it smells weird and they just don't like it. So they get near it and they just go like, oh no, thank you. I'm good. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Oh, and I see somebody's asking if they can come look at my garden. And yeah, I will totally do some garden tours. So one of these days you can come and look at the garden for sure. I love to show and tell. So yeah, what else do we have on there?
Well, and actually, I think those were our sort of main questions that I had come in, and it's actually pretty much time to wrap up anyway, so that might be perfect timing. Thank you so much, Callista, for presenting today and all the interesting information you shared with us. I know I learned so much. Yeah, so thank you for presenting. And everyone watching, I think that's the end of our presentation for today. So go outside, get some fresh air, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'd mention too, Christine, is just if people are interested in more information on this stuff and what's going on, I do have social media pages, so you can find more info on there. And I do tend to post videos. I have a YouTube channel, so go ahead and find that stuff too as additional resources. But I'm gonna send Christine a list with some instructions on how to grow microgreens that she can send out in an email tomorrow, along with some other ideas for organizations that you might be able to get in touch with in your community if you don't have a space to garden in.
Awesome, thanks. So yeah, those resources will be sent out in the email tomorrow. Thanks for reminding me of that, Callista. We're also going to be on that cbeen.ca/wildvoicesonline page as well. I'm putting up all the recordings and all of the resources there. So if you don't get that email, they'll also be there as well.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.